Red, blue, and white, there's not a doubt we play the game to win. A team that knows commitment, that's the way it's always been. We rise up to the challenge, we give the game our all. With sheer determination, we go in for the ball. With the crowd thunders, go Cats, we break the banner down. We know they'll play with courage to the final.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Cats Cast. We are at episode 3 for 2017. My name, of course, is Willow, and I'm joined by a couple of Bigfooty guests tonight. Firstly, welcome back for the first time this year, Pivo.
Willow. Happy Easter, mate. And happy Easter to all the listeners out there, all 20 of them. Hi, Mum and Dad. How you going?
Thanks for being on board, mate.
That's all right, mate.
And joining us also for the first time this year, we've got Partridge.
Evening, Willow.
How are we, mate?
Yes, oh, fantastic. There's nothing a good atheist looks forward to more than the Easter break. It's wonderful.
And like that, we're off to a flyer. Gentlemen, we've got a lot to discuss, and a lot that we have already discussed, so pushing on.
And a lot that's disgusting.
Yes, and pushing on, it would be since the last show that, well, I recorded, we have played North Melbourne and Melbourne. I think a lot of us probably went into the North game expecting a comfortable win, and we got anything but that, with it coming down to the hyphen, George Hall and Smith, getting a goal with a minute or so to go after we were about 5 goals down at one point, and then followed up last weekend in a game that I was a bit concerned about because I saw Melbourne as a good up-and-coming team. We were fortunate that they lost 2 of their good players in Jordan Lewis and Jesse Hogan, who both decided to punch Carlton players in the head the week before, so that helped our cause.
Who could blame them?
Who could blame them, that's right. And look, it was an interesting game last weekend. We had a really good first quarter. We had a really bad second quarter. The third quarter was probably a bit here and there, and then we had a really good last quarter. And somehow we ended up winning by 5 goals. So I'll start with you, Pivo. What's been your take on the last fortnight and how we've been going?
Good, accurate kicking is good football.
True.
Yep.
That's all I think I need to say about it.
The less said, the better?
Maybe. No, although that said, the North Melbourne game, I actually reside with a North Melbourne supporter, and there was nothing sweeter than winning by a point. Although I did sleep on the couch that night.
Oh, well, you've got to take one for the team occasionally.
Correct.
And the Melbourne game, we're just happy that we kicked straight.
Yeah, look, the Melbourne game was... I did go to that one. I wasn't able to get to the North Melbourne one, but I did get to go to the Melbourne game. And yeah, I think you summed up pretty well. The first quarter, I thought we played quite well. Middle 2 quarters, not so good, and then sort of came home like a bit of a steam train. I think similar to the North Melbourne game where we sort of got a bit of momentum at 3-quarter time, jagging a goal right at the death. The goal by Menzel at 3-quarter time against Melbourne was a cracker.
Yep, certainly was.
Partridge, your thoughts?
I think, yeah, it's been very inconsistent across the 4 quarters in both games. At times looked good, a quarter or two, certainly a quarter in each game at least, where I think they've been pretty well outplayed, then finishing strong. It's funny, I thought, although I think they were further behind against North, but I thought we were outplayed more comprehensively for a while against Melbourne. They just couldn't put it on the scoreboard. But at the same time, they're finishing well. They're finishing games off, and more importantly, they're winning. So you take three wins, no losses anytime.
I suppose it is worth... I think I was listening to one of I think it was SEN or something like that, and they, at this time of the year, if you're not playing well, but you can still bank those points, it's the best possible result if you're not playing well.
Absolutely.
You still get the wins and the points on the board. So Overwhelming positive that we've started but with 3 wins, despite the less than convincing fashion that we've probably showed.
Quickly, Will, sorry, mate. The Melbourne game I found was a bit of an interest. So I actually thought against North we were incredibly lucky to get out of that one. The Melbourne game, while I think we were also lucky in that game, and especially in the fact that Melbourne didn't kick straight, and when they had the momentum, they really could have put us to the sword. But I always had the feeling if we could sort of get out of their defence, which we actually had a bit of trouble with in the second and third quarters.
Second quarter especially, yeah.
Yeah, that when we could get it into the forward line, I always thought we would actually score.
Yeah.
And so I always had this sense of, if we can just if we can just hold on, if we can just, somehow weather this a little bit, if we can get it back into our forward line, we're a chance here. And as it turned out, we sort of managed to do that. We sort of kept in touch, obviously thanks to Melbourne kicking really badly, and then sort of stormed over the top of them. So, yeah, I think we've been lucky. I think we could, we probably should be 1 and 2 rather than 3 and zip. But there was a few signs with that Melbourne game, and like the first quarter against Melbourne, there was a couple of times where they had, I reckon 8 or 9 sort of coming off out of defence. I mean, because Melbourne actually dropped their wings back onto the back of the square.
Yeah, they did.
And so, but we actually were managing to pick through it in the first quarter pretty easily. And then they Melbourne obviously got their structure a bit better, and they started pressing up, and their forwards were sort of sealing it in a little bit better. But it was an interesting game to watch it, sort of the way it unfolded. And obviously, we ended up coming away with a pretty convincing win thanks to kicking straight. But it was the North Melbourne game. I think we dug ourselves into a hole, and we probably were a little bit lucky to get out of that. And we can probably thank North Melbourne to maybe just not quite knowing how to finish us off.
Yeah, and whoever it was that did that clumsy tackle on Holland Smith at the end.
Big Bruce.
Bruce, yeah. Who actually was really good against GWS.
He wiped the floor with Stanley.
I agree with what you're saying, Pivo, about our forward line, and I think that really contrasts to how we were against North, because the North game was incredibly frustrating, and I went to the North game and we sat somewhat behind the goals, just sort of in the pocket, and the way the ball was coming into the forward line, especially early, the first quarter in particular was probably as bad as any, but we weren't giving our forwards a chance. Just the way we were bringing the ball in, it was just awful. And then the contrast the next week, when even though Melbourne, especially in the second quarter, even though Melbourne had us pinned in and were comfortably the better side for that quarter, the few chances we did get, we were capitalising on.
Yeah, well, it's fair to say, I think, I reckon both Hawkins and Menzel are looking sensational, as good as they've ever looked at the moment. and they're converting great.
Yep.
They're not. Yeah. I can't remember too many they've missed this year between them.
No, they've both been really accurate, and you're right. They both look really good, and like Hawkins is moving so much better than last year. For the benefit of some, I think who will mention this, I think you can remove the so much better. He's moving. Yeah. Oh God, he looks so much better. Now, to use the same term, he just looks such a different player this year.
And he's just so much more dangerous when he actually gets up and moving, because there's not many defenders. If he gets out in front of them, they can't get round him. They can't. The problem is, and then of course against North, when we weren't moving the ball well either, and we weren't helping, he started giving away free kicks because he's getting frustrated. The ball's not really. We're not helping his cause, and he probably had a bit of a scrappy game, and he still kicked 4, I think, didn't he?
4.
Yep.
And again, through good kicking, his accuracy is helping immensely with that.
Well, it's funny. it's funny too, just like Menzel kicked a ripper at three-quarter time against Melbourne. Remember Hawkins took that great one-hander, and that was a really tough set shot against North at three-quarter time after the siren that he nailed.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah, you're right. It was a great grab. He really plucked it sort of from nowhere.
Yeah.
It's and then we have mentioned it both times, but the goal from Menzel on three-quarter time last week was ridiculous because I was watching that thinking, oh yeah, this will be tough. You can't run around, so he doesn't run around. He still kicks a banana, and the goal umpire wouldn't have even had to move. Just the amount of talent that bloke has that we are finally getting to see in the park is just... And then there was another goal he kicked, I think the quarter where he took the mark and played on, and instead of straightening up, just curled it.
He did a little bit.
It was like
it was outside of the ball, not the outside of the foot.
It was like watching Steve Johnson, though, just the way...
It was very similar. Yeah, very similar to the ones he kicks,
it's probably a good lead-in, actually, for our next topic or the segment we've brought in for flyers and floppers. So we'll start with... This week we'll start with the flyers. So who have you got, Partridge, as your flyer at the moment?
So we're talking, this covers the North and Melbourne games, right?
Whatever you want it to be, it can be.
I'm looking at the team as we speak.
Thanks for doing preparation.
Oh, absolutely sensational. I'm actually thinking...
To be fair, you did say you are not allowed to go with Dangerfield or Selwood.
No, I didn't.
No, I didn't.
Partridge said that.
Scratch them, make it a challenge. Come on, let's, don't take the easy option. So,
I'll give you one. I will go a little subtle, but I reckon just starting to build. I'm going to go and nominate Parfitt.
That's not that subtle. He's a Rising Star winner for the round. So,
well, I couldn't. Well, I was going to say
we probably should have touched on anyway, but
no. But I think it's just to mention that it wasn't his first time he's looked good. I thought he was okay against North too.
Yes,
he's done some good things, but definitely a much better game against Melbourne. Yeah.
What in particular, while we are on the topic of him, what in particular are you liking from what you're seeing?
Poise.
Yep.
Composure. Seems to know what to do with the ball when he gets it, and just looks comfortable.
It's amazing how when players have poise and composure, how they can almost see the game slow down around them and and pick the right option and make the right decision, which can completely open up the ground for your team as well.
Mm-hmm.
Pivo, who's your flyer?
Okay, so before I say it, I was just going to sort of add about Parfitt. He also seems to have that uncanny, or maybe it's not uncanny, maybe that's a bit unfair, but already he's got this ability of just being able to create a little bit of space for himself. Just holding onto the ball just long enough, or just a little side step or a back step, and he just opens it up for himself, which gives that illusion of having that bit of time. And for a guy that's in his third senior game, you can kind of already see that. I just wonder whether that's a little bit from having played senior footy in SA.
Yep.
But yeah, you can already sort of see just with the way he sort of moves, and you could see it even when the earlier games when he perhaps wasn't getting quite as much as the ball and didn't have as many disposals versus the game against Melbourne. But he looks good. I think he's already maybe winning the battle against Caddy already. Potentially, maybe a bit of an early call, but yeah, he just looks like a really neat player who plays, a little bit of instinct, knows what to do with the footy. He's got it, you can see he's got a bit of IQ about himself already, and he doesn't seem to be overawed, which for a young guy, I think bodes pretty well.
I'll just to hold off on your flyer for a second. I just thought I'd add. You mentioned he looks like he's got that IQ. I think that's showing because he's getting better every game. And I would imagine that part of that is just simply every week he's learning more He's reading the game, obviously the speed of an AFL game and where players go, what they do, and learning where to position himself more to be involved. And I would not be surprised at all if that was as a result of what you mentioned as well. Anyway, back...
Yeah, he just looks like a really nice player. You know, it's a bit of a pithy word to use, I guess, but he just looks good. He just looks like he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't seem to waste the ball when he gets it, and he makes good decisions. And I think for a guy that's young, it's just a really good sign to sort of see him the way he's already sort of going. So I mean, that's a really good nomination, I reckon.
Yep. And your flyer.
Look, Chris Scott. I think. Look, he's 3 and zip. He's going really well.
No, it's fair enough.
Can't argue.
Got to give credit. There's 3 wins, no losses. It's what he's meant to do.
That's not actually my flyer though. But no, look, Menzel for me.
Yep.
I think fair enough.
He's just. We're getting to see. I mean, and you sort of think, geez, what would he have been like if he hadn't done his knees? Considering the way he's playing now after 4 reconstructions, I mean, that in itself is amazing. There were times when I sort of thought, look, I just don't think this guy's going to be the same that we sort of got a glimpse of before he went down.
Oh, I absolutely I'll put my hand up here. I definitely thought that.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I mean, I had my doubts because, you do one and you sort of see, you look at Jackson Thurlow, who's probably, struggling a little bit coming back.
Yeah, definitely.
And, I mean, that's happened to Menzel, 4 times. And it's like, man, is he going to be, mentally, is he going to be strong enough? Is he going to lose anything from, but he doesn't really seem to have lost too much.
No, I was never worried about the mental side because just to go through the rehab, you've got to have that. But I think I was more worried about just agility. And I think it was the second week against Adelaide in 2015 when he barely got a touch.
Yep.
And that's when I was like, thinking, how often is his knee going to flare up and is it going to be swollen and blah, blah, blah. But that seems to be not an issue at the moment. So, the thing is he hasn't lost his goal sense, which is incredible.
Yep.
He's just lethal. He only needs half a chance and he converts.
Yeah, that's why. Do you remember when?
I've never been happy to be wrong. It's great.
Do you remember when he had that shocker against Essendon? What was it, 1-6 or whatever it was? And you had all the media was like going, we can't get. And I just sort of chuckled. I remember the game and I thought they clearly haven't seen this guy play because he's actually pretty deadly. He's just had a bit of a bad game. And
which happens.
Yeah, exactly. And, sure enough, as the season progressed, that, discrepancy of goals to points quickly evened up and then he got in front. And it's like, this is the Menzel I think all the Geelong supporters know. And we're seeing it even more so, I think, in these first few games, just this sixth sense he has when he lines up for goals. He just knows. He knows where they are. He doesn't really need to look at them. And there's so much of I keep sort of thinking about Steve Johnson. They're very similar in the way that they sort of move around that forward line.
Yep.
And he's a nightmare. I would actually love to see him almost play one out of full forward and move Hawkins up into centre half forward.
Yeah.
And just try and clear out the 50 and let Menzel sort of just try and work. Because the other thing is his ability to mark and sort of just get in the right position, outbody his man. He's a really clever player, and
he's strong.
Yeah, he's deceptively strong, and it's so sad to sort of think of what he missed, but it's so great to see what he's now doing.
Yep.
Yeah. I guess in hindsight, the one thing he did do well was that he was so young when he had the injuries.
Yep.
So he's still young enough. When I didn't think he'd come back, but he's 25, 24,
26 maybe.
Somewhere in there. Anyway.
About to turn 26. He's, I think, 25 and 8 months or something.
All right. And my flyer at the moment, and I was going to say something else, but it's probably tied in with this particular person. I was going to say our fitness staff was the flyer, because of the way we're
finishing games.
games. But a tie into that is my flyer is Tommy Hawkins, and we could also.
I nearly picked Hawkins. I just wanted to be daring.
We could probably tie the fitness staff into that because he's looking in the best shape I can remember seeing him in. I think at some point this week, the Cats on one of their social medias had like Tom Hawkins' top 5 goals or something like that. And there was a goal from 2013, I think it was, against Essendon. That one where he paddled the ball in front of himself. Might have been 2014, actually, because Chappie was chasing him, if you remember that game where he paddled it about 40 metres and then kicked it round the body and went and hugged the bloke in the crowd. He was huge. If you
by comparison,
do yourself, if everyone I'd recommend, look up that video and have a look at the size of him, because the first thing I looked at and I'm like, goodness me, have a look at the size of Hawk. He was massive, just all arse and chest, basically. Where now he's obviously still a big boy, but he looks a lot lean and he's covering the ground well, and he's working hard and he's being rewarded with goals. And even he's in that good space at the moment where against North Melbourne, where he worked his arse off and he didn't have the best day, but he still kicked 4.
Good reward.
And he's getting a reward for it. And there'll be a day, the way he's going at the moment, there'll be a day where against a lesser team, where we'll put a team to the sword and he'll kick 8 or 9 because he's just he'll get the reward for it.
Yep, I hope so.
Partridge, your flopper.
Well, there's an obvious one, but I was about to say I don't want to kick someone when they're potentially down, but on the other hand, yes, I do. I think for a variety of reasons, which we can touch on, I think the obvious one is Taylor.
Yep.
Now you can obviously some of us think he should never even been played as a forward, and perhaps the experiment should have been stillborn, a lot sooner. But he just looks very, very uncomfortable as a forward. He doesn't look confident. He looks to me, he looks a yard slower, fumbly, uncertain. So I think he's, of the guys that you thought from the final last year, some of the older players, you thought, well, where are they placed? I mean, Mackie had a bad final, but he's been rock solid, I would think, this year.
Yep.
He's been really good. He's looked fine. Taylor just looks terrible. Now, I'm hoping he's going to look a lot more comfortable in the back line. But I think that's by far and away the big flop of the 3 games so far, is just how he's gone as a forward. And really the whole pre-season.
Pivo?
Is Taylor the most expensive forward decoy in the game?
Well,
because isn't that the argument that's going on at the moment?
Yep.
It is.
The reason Menzel and Hawkins are getting freed up and they're scoring goals for us is because Taylor is keeping men off them.
And that's even been the party line all week. I think all the interviews I've heard with Cats players, I think I heard Mitch Duncan on, it might have been Triple M on Sunday, I'm not sure, no, it was the Sunday Footy Show, sorry. I saw him on, he said the same. He's taking away, he's drawing people, he's given Hawk and men space.
I'd say that's fine to a point, but you've still got to be competent with the ball when it's near you, and at times he's just looked terrible. Just to be able to even gather the ball cleanly and use it, which is more of a concern, you know what I mean?
Yep.
If he at least could take a few marks and offer something when the ball does go through there, you could maybe fair enough, maybe there's something to that, but you've still got to do your bit when you've got the ball, and I don't think he's doing that.
Yeah, I don't think you can keep... You can't keep sort of towing that party line, so to speak, and you can't keep throwing him up forward if he doesn't produce. And if he doesn't produce, sooner or later, sides are going to just start sweating off him and just say, well, you know what, no danger anyway. So,
well, isn't it the reason they moved on Kirsten? So you could argue, what's the difference?
Exactly.
It's yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
But you're right. I totally agree with you. He does look lost. He looks like a guy that has no real clue on how to play forward.
And he's got no confidence, he looks at the moment as well.
Yeah, and it plays into that, which I must admit, I sort of, when the discussion first came up, I think sort of after the finals last year, there was talk of, well, is it Henderson or is it Taylor who goes forward? And it was like, well, you know what, ideally neither of them go forward. We should have actually been able to develop a centre-half forward ourselves rather than having to look to those two. But Taylor, I was probably the one I thought should go forward, but he has not looked great at all.
Yep. Now, did you have a flopper? Or are you just going with Harry Taylor as well?
Well, I did. I must admit, I did consider Taylor because he hasn't been great. But then I thought, well, okay, we're working on it in terms of our expectation on what guys are going to be like and perhaps what we're seeing. And I would think Tom Stewart has disappointed me immensely. He has been incredibly underwhelming for a guy that's been talked up a bit, sort of leading into the season. I'm not really seeing anything that distinguishes him from a lot of other VFL, SFL, WAFL players that are running around in those comps. Yep. Maybe it might be a bit early, and that's he may sort of need to work into it a little bit. But I remember seeing a little bit of him last year, and it was talked up a bit even last year through the VFL. And I remember watching only a couple of games. I don't really watch a lot of VFL, but sort of thought, I'm not really seeing it with this guy. That everyone's sort of talking about it, so maybe I've just caught him on a bad day. But the games I've sort of seen him this year, kind of more of the same for me, and I'm not really sold on him. I'm kind of thinking he probably needs to be sent back to the VFL for a bit of a run, just to, I don't know, maybe get a bit of confidence up, work on a few things. I don't know. He's probably my flopper.
That was that was who I was going to say as well. So, but I will say, and it's probably pretty tough because the person I'm saying is coming back from a knee reconstruction, but Jackson Thurlow, I reckon, is battling a bit at the moment.
Yep. No, I reckon he absolutely is. I reckon that's a fair call. And I thought he was underwhelming in the pre-season games.
Yeah, it's a harsh call because he's missed a year of footy, so it's not going to be easy. I think he probably needs to go back to the twos just to get a game, just to start to get a few kicks in a game and have a bit more time and space to get himself back into it all. Because
I actually think he's been unlucky in that I think he got rated very well off his first year, and justifiably, which I think was 2013. I don't think he quite kicked on like we probably would have hoped. I think he's been a little bit overrated on the board. And I think, unfortunately, the knee injury came just when he probably might have been able to make the transition from so-so to a good player. And I think at the moment he's still in that spot between he's thereabouts to being a good player, but he's not there yet.
Yeah, I think when he got... Last year was the year that you sort of expected him to make that next step. And before that, he was only borderline best 22, 25 sort of thing,
Yeah.
And obviously the knee injury basically wipes that all off and puts him back to where he started. But he's from what you started to see of him, he looks like he's a beautiful user. He's got a good jump, he's a good spoil, he's quick. But I think he needs to just, for as much as anything, I think he needs to go back and get some confidence in the twos. I mean, he's been taking kick-outs, and his default option when he takes a kick-out, from what I've noticed, is to just... If you're looking up the ground behind him, to your left-hand side, he hooks it long on that angle.
Yep, he does. Yeah,
every single time.
often.
So, and it's just, obviously that's where he's going to get more power probably kicking. He's probably more confident when he sort of pulls his leg across his body, kicking out that way as well. But his go-to is to just bang it long from a kick out. And I just think he's, if he's had a few more games or if he hadn't been hurt, which is not something you can fault someone for, but I think he hits different targets and his confidence probably allows him to do a few more things. So it's purely just that I think he just needs to get more games under his belt. But at the moment, he's just going.
Yep, I think that's about right.
All right, so we look forward to now. Yes, sorry, mate.
Sorry, I was just going to say, I reckon that's also a little bit indicative of the way the season's going, because I reckon you could have chosen Thurlow, Stewart, Ruggles, maybe even Lonergan as guys who potentially could have been floppers.
Yeah.
Cowan.
And where are they? They're all sitting in the defence.
Yeah.
They're guys that they're not bad. They're not. I'm not saying that they're bad players, but they all seem to be struggling a little bit at the same time. And I mean, and Ruggles, I actually thought played really well in his first game against Freo.
Yep.
I think Stewart actually showed a little bit against Freo. But man, they've been a little bit off the boil, and I know that there's pressure up the ground that can be blamed for that a little bit because it's a thankless task being a defender, especially if there's no pressure. But having all of them down, it makes it tough.
Yeah,
and I thought Ruggles had an absolute shocker last week. I thought he looked really dodgy.
Yeah. Look, I'm a fan of Ruggles. He gets bashed a little bit, and I actually think that he's a little bit better than that. But he was ordinary against Melbourne, and he wasn't great against North either.
My only flaw on him, don't doubt the endeavour, and he runs straight, and all that's great. Is just his disposal lets him down. He does really good work, and then he'll butcher the kick, and you're just like,
Yeah,
I don't reckon he steadies himself.
Yeah, I reckon he holds onto it
off one step, and
I reckon he holds onto it a fraction too long when he kicks it, and he puts himself under pressure doing it.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty fair. Fair criticism.
You notice when he gets the ball and goes to play on, he gets just that little bit too close to the bloke on the mark, and he lets the tackler just get that little bit of pressure on him if they're behind him and stuff. And it's last year when he did it, I thought it was still him adjusting from VFL pace, because in the VFL he would have time he could do the exact same thing and he wouldn't get that same pressure. But that's my theory. But he's doing it a little bit this year. But I thought his first game was really good as well against Freo. So. Now we're looking forward to our traditional Easter Monday game against they're our arch enemy at the moment, let's be honest, Hawthorn. The lovely time of 3:20 we start on Monday. I'll start with the ins and outs for the team, and then we'll just go from there. So and we'll look at the Hawks as well. So the Hawks are welcoming in O'Brien, Billy Hartung, Sicily, Howe and Hardwick. Out is Pivo, your boy, Tia Miles, and Jager O'Meara is out, which is a big out for them, a good out for us.
It is.
In for Geelong we have, and this is obviously a squad, so there's, at this point, 7 named on the bench, or however many. So we've got into the squad Reece Stanley, Josh Golden Ticket Cowan, George Hall and Smith.
Sorry, continue, Willa.
George Hall and Smith, Nakia Cockatoo, and Lincoln McCarthy has been dropped. Stone cold omitted. And I'm just having a look at the Cats' own reporting of this. And from the words on their side, it says Stanley, Cowan and Hall and Smith will definitely take on the Hawks as each of them has been named on the field. Cockatoo is among 7 players named on an extended bench, so you would imagine the outs are to come out of Blitzarves, Cockatoo, Mitch Duncan, Menegola, Jordan Murdoch, Tom Ruggles, and Jackson Thurlow. And I reckon we could pretty much say that Cocky, Blitz and Duncan will all play.
I reckon Menegola will. I reckon you could just draw a line through the last three.
Murdoch, Ruggles and Thurlow potentially.
And all three were pretty ordinary last week.
Potentially the outs. So, Pivo, I'll start with you. What is your thought on the changes at this point?
So James Parsons is still in, yeah?
Yes. James Parsons is still in and is named on the half-forward flank.
All right, so Parsons has a 100% win rate, so clearly we will win.
That's how the logic works. Correct.
Yep. No, all right, so I just said James Parsons had not been mentioned at all yet, and I just had to throw his name out there.
Hey, it was good. Did some good things.
He was better than good. Oh, come on. No, I am very biased when it comes to him, though. So, yeah, look, McCarthy's probably look, I'll go with McCarthy because I reckon there's someone else that will generate a bit of discussion. McCarthy was perhaps a little bit of a surprise for me. I must admit, I'm not quite as enamoured with McCarthy as a lot of other people on the board. But that said, I was surprised when I saw that he was a player that was admitted. So the ins, so Cockatoo and Hall and Smith both had thumb problems, didn't they?
Yep.
So yes. Cocky's been out since round one?
Yes. Yeah,
right,
round
Hall
one.
and Smith his last couple as well.
Hall and Smith only missed one game.
Yeah.
Only missed one game, yeah. So, and look, I thought Hall and Smith was actually all right against North, so that's fine. Cockatoo, I can understand why bringing him back in. Stanley, yeah, I think we look a little bit
tall.
It's the great discussion that continues to do the rounds with Smith, Stanley, and Blitzers all in the same team. I don't think you can play all three. It's got to be, two of them.
Well, the problem is they can, but Blitzers will play as a midfielder.
Correct, and I guess a lot of us don't agree that that's where he should be playing. So, does Stanley go to centre half forward? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't think he's anything special as a forward. So, and then we got our boy Josh Cowan coming in and named on the wing. So he looks like he's well and truly embedded into that side, and he will be running out on Easter Monday, much to the delight of many Geelong supporters, no doubt.
We'll get back to this. That's okay.
Actually, if I can, I was just going to say, I actually am echo Pivo's thoughts. I am surprised McCarthy got omitted. I'm not as enamoured as others of. I thought he was very good against Fremantle, fair to say, and I thought that left foot goal he kicked was an absolute ripper. So got to give credit where it's due. But I would have thought he's one of the absolute favourites of Scott too. So I'm really surprised that he got dropped because it was only really one bad game. I mean, he was so against North. I thought he was bad, worse last week, but. Yeah, I'm surprised. I would have thought he would have stayed in because some of the potential competition as a forward with pace, say Murdoch, they don't want to play him up forward apparently now, and he had an absolute shocker. So it's not like he was much better. But I don't know. I'm really surprised by that. Stanley, I don't know. It's almost like their selection is they want a bit of everything. They want Stanley to kind of be there to play centre half forward if Taylor doesn't work out, but they kind of want him to be there in the ruck if it doesn't work out with Smith and Blitzers. And I don't know. I'm definitely not convinced I mean, you could argue he's kicked goals last year as a whereas Taylor hasn't. Potentially he is a better forward than Taylor, I think. But, let's hope it works. I think you're right. Cockatoo and Hall and Smith have done enough obviously they want to put games into Cockatoo and he's showing improvement. Hall and Smith had 2 good games, so there's no real surprises. Cowan is just a wonderful, wonderful story. Well, that's all I can say. I'm passing it to you, Will.
Righto. I'm actually just on the Link McCarthy thing. Whilst he does, obviously, he drifts in and out, but that is also a bit of a part and parcel of a small forward, I think, to some extent. But I'm surprised that he's out because I think, and this is just my opinion, our forward pressure has looked its best when we have Cocky and McCarthy in the same team. And I'm going back to last year when I reckon our best games, we had both of those two in the team, and then Cocky got hurt at some point last year, and we lost a bit. And just my gut, based on pure just gut feel more than anything, is I think we look sharper in the forward line with the two of them down there. So I'm surprised that they've just out and out drop Link already. So obviously he's being told to work on something. He's under instructions to focus on something in the VFL, I assume, if they've already told him he's out and he's playing twos.
He needs to work on minding defensive space.
He needs to work on remembering that he's a little bloke and not a big bloke, and instead of flying for marks, probably do himself a favour and stay front and square.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Because he's a very good finisher.
It's great that he can take a big mark every now and again, fantastic, but it's not really his job. Not with Hawkins and Menzel there and the form they're in.
But he's quick, he's got a good goal sense, and he's got a beautiful left foot. He loves snapping on his left, and if he's hitting the pack, he's got the speed, the strength to take the ball clean away from it, and he's got the ability to finish. So he would better stay in the contest, I think, if he actually stayed on the ground. So maybe that's what he's being told to do as well. I'm not... The other changes I'm not overly excited by. I probably will keep my powder dry for a little bit until the actual team, the final team is announced. But my immediate instinct is that we feel tall. It felt like early when Zach Smith was a late out against Freo, it just felt like we had the balance right.
Yeah, it looked it on the field too.
And then now all of a sudden we're throwing in and we're going to have Land of the Giants again.
Look at the back line. Look at the back six as known.
Yep. So if we're reading the back six as named, we've got Andrew Mackie, who is tall, but he will. I think we all know he'll probably play on Bruce, as he has the last few years.
Decades.
And Mac is in as good a form as I can remember for a while, in a different role for him, but he's absolutely just blanketing the dangerous small forwards on the other team. So I think he's had Walters, Garlett and Lindsay Thomas, who all are dangerous, and I think he's conceded 4 goals in 3 games or something along those lines. So we can't fault him being there. Lonergan, who is, in my opinion, really starting to show the signs that this is it's coming to an end. He just looks that bit like it's starting to get past him. Tom Stewart, who we've discussed. Harry Taylor is named on a half-back flank. Lockie Henderson, and not Henderson's been solid. Zach Tui's been solid. Our 2 Carlton pickups over the last couple of years have been... I don't have many complaints from what they've given us so far. But
suck it, Carlton.
But there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 players that are over 190 centimetres tall. Off the top of my head, assuming that Stewart is.
Against, we don't go like that. There's no way known we go like that. So the question becomes who pushes back. Cowan has played across there. He would be one you would think may drop back. As much as I hate to say it, because I like Guthrie as the midfielder, but I think Guthrie may go to the halfback flank.
I was going to say, if you put Guthrie back, it's a strong midfield side. There's Dangerfield, Selwood, Duncan, Hornsmith, Menegola. So it's five other midfielders that have all played good footy already this year. So that could be part of their thinking.
Yep.
So from a matchup perspective, how do we think we would line up? So we've got Cyril. Is Guthrie going to go to Cyril?
My gut feeling is Guthrie gets him, and he may actually play as a sort of softish kind of tag.
Follow him through the middle as well when he goes through there.
Yeah, I think so.
I wish Guthrie had a few more games under his belt to do that, but yeah, I think that's spot on.
Is Puopolo playing? He's not named as an out, but didn't he do his hammy, or wasn't he? The questions about that.
Might have been.
I have a feeling he went off hurt against Gold Coast for them. So there may be something in that. If he's not playing, it's one less of him to worry about, that's for sure. Bruce, we all agree, I think, that Mackie will take him.
Mm-hmm.
Vickery? Dom, I'm
Henderson.
assuming, I would have thought Lonergan might go to Vickery.
No, well, I would have thought Lonergan's a better pure stopper. Maybe put him on Roughhead. Or do you go think Henderson's more athletic? Don't know. But it'll be anyway. Those two players, they're the two that are going to get him. You'd think.
And then there's Gunston as well, who has been
Oh yeah,
up the
forgot about him.
ground. He's
Sorry.
been pushing up the ground a lot more this year. He hasn't even kicked a goal yet, and he's getting the butt. It hasn't been working, so you would think that Clarkson would sort of revert to what he knows a bit to try and get it back, and you could expect to see Gunston forward.
Well, if looking at it, if Taylor's in the back line, maybe they go Taylor on Vickery, Lonergan on Gunston, and Henderson on Roughhead.
Or Taylor on Roughhead.
Yeah, I would have gone Taylor, Roughhead, Lonergan, Vickery.
Yeah, and Henderson on Gunston.
Yeah.
Yep.
And maybe that's their thinking. That might be what they look to try and do.
So then where does Tom Stewart fit in?
Bench.
But you don't pick a player just for the bench, do you? So it's all about, obviously, rotation.
Well, he potentially starts off the bench and then sort of swings through maybe with Mackie.
Yep.
Potentially.
That's
I know they'll want to try and free. They want to try and free someone up, and it may be that they want to try and get Taylor loose.
We'll want to try and free Tui up, won't we?
Or Tui. Yeah, there'd be one of those guys. You would think Tui's probably the obvious one to try and let him run, but
run and carry, and obviously the way he kicks the ball and his metres gained, if you follow that stat, have been phenomenal, haven't they, this year?
Yep.
And he is good because when he gets it, he kicks it long, but he kicks it well. He doesn't just throw it on the boot. He hits blokes a long way off.
Taylor does all right as a loose man as well.
Yeah,
sort of cutting across and intercepting and sort of being the second player. So yeah, they could go a couple of ways there, I suppose, with the team they've got. It does look tall though. So
for the purposes of this, we have Parsons named on a half-forward flank, Reece Stanley at centre-half forward, Stephen Motlop on a half-forward flank, Menzel, Hawkins and Parfitt as our forwards. What would you guys feel, and just a thought that I've had, if they insist on picking all the big blokes and having Stanley, Smith, Blitz all in the same team, I wondered if it would be worth trying Stanley out of the goal square as a full forward and let Hawk push up the ground a bit, especially with this year how well he's moving. He uses the ball well when he gets it up the ground. He's a good option, and if you can isolate Stanley, start him deep, if you can actually put the ball out in front of him, he should be able to get clear on a lead from most defenders with his speed.
Yep.
And if he gets a bit of touch going, I think he's largely confidence-based as well, but he can take a mark as well. So I don't know. I'd probably prefer, if they insist on playing both of them forward, I would probably prefer Hawk to actually play as the centre-half forward.
Yeah, not the worst idea.
And he's probably got more awareness and ability to actually get to the right spots to, as they say, hit the logos and work up the ground and stuff as well. I don't know what your thoughts are on you guys are thinking regarding the forward line.
Well,
Yeah, I don't mind the idea of Hawkins sort of coming in at centre half forward and coming up the ground, and then sort of trying to create a little bit of space for guys like Motlop and Parfitt potentially to run into. So there could be a bit of sort of over the back, sort of go a bit of pace and see what you can do, and then try and let Menzel sort of play there. But I keep coming back to Stanley, Smith and Blitzard all on the same team. We've tried it. I don't think it really works as well as maybe they think it works. It just looks out of whack. Although the weather is supposed to be all right on Monday, I think. So maybe they're thinking we can get them with height, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Reece Stanley just doesn't really do a lot for me anyway, which may be part of the problem I have with it.
Oh, no, well, you're not wrong. He's a horribly, horribly frustrating player because he can look so good when he's on. But he just has the ability to not only just play a bad game, but completely disappear, and you just don't see him when he has a bad game.
Yep.
And I'm not convinced about him as a centre forward. So we shall see.
Have you gentlemen watched much of Hawthorn at this point, and what is your take on them being 0-3 and how they've been travelling?
I think it's wonderful.
Apart from the obvious delight that we take in it,
I watched part of the last quarter once I saw what was happening, thanks to the thread, and there was much mirth and merriment and chuckling as the goals rained down on them. That's all I've seen, but geez, they didn't look good the other night. They looked pretty ordinary. So long may it continue.
Yeah, I was a bit the same. I watched a little bit of the Gold Coast game last week. I thought I was on the comedy channel, not the Fox Footy channel. They were ordinary. They were really. It's been a long time since I've seen a Hawthorn side play like that. I actually have a lot of respect for Hawthorn. I know that's not really fashionable to say from the Geelong side of the fence, but I actually don't mind them. I actually don't mind the way they play footy, but they were rubbish. They were really, really poor. And against the side who themselves were not travelling that well, they were made to look second rate. And I really worry about how they're going to come out on Monday. If they're not breathing fire and we're not ready for them. But then again, maybe they are in decline, and maybe we might actually put a nail in the coffin pretty early for their season. Who knows? I'd love it if we did.
So, based on what you have seen, how do we beat them? What do we do, basically?
Any reasonable level of intensity and commitment. I think sustain that for 4 quarters and we'll be too good for them. Based on what I've seen, our best is still pretty good. Certainly our last quarter against Melbourne, our last quarter against North. When we get the game going, it's still a pretty good team. And lethal up forward with Hawkins and Menzel at the moment, and obviously Dangerfield, not just Dangerfield and Selwood, but get the rest of the midfielders like Duncan's having a great year. We could have almost called him out as someone who was flying, actually, in hindsight. He's been fantastic. Menengola and Hall and Smith help out Guthrie, perhaps. I don't see any reason why, if they play well, that they can't be just way too good for them.
Yep.
Yeah, I'd like to just break away from them fairly early and just kind of break them early in the game. Yep. I think if they stick around, or if we don't play well and they stick around, or they actually play better than what they showed, particularly last week, if they stick around, it could. We could be a bit of bother because, we know the way these two sides lift for each other. So I'm hoping that we can just break the game open early and sort of get... let's just say, I reckon if we play like we did last Easter Monday, we would win easily based on what we've seen.
Yep.
I've only watched a little bit of them. They looked really good. And like your sort of standard Hawthorn that we've seen for the last few years in the first quarter against Adelaide. Maybe not even the first quarter, for the first 15 minutes, They did. But then Adelaide started to get more of the ball and get the game on their terms. And I thought to myself that game, I thought Adelaide will win this. And Adelaide were 4 goals down at the time. And I thought Adelaide will still win this. They've got the game now. And then I think they were in front by half time and didn't really look back. Were pretty comfortable over Hawthorn. I must admit I didn't watch their game against Essendon. Part of me, when I saw the score, thought it might have been just the game Essendon were never going to lose type of a thing with their comeback game. And then I watched a fair bit of the Gold Coast game on the weekend just gone, and they just looked like the moment Gold Coast sort of got into them early, that it all almost just got a bit too hard for them, and they just didn't. It didn't look like that same Hawthorn that we've seen for years, where you always, even if we were 4 goals up with 5 minutes to go, you were still worried that they were going to come. There just didn't seem to be that. So I agree with Piv that and it almost, and it sounds a bit disrespectful, but it almost feels like that type of game when, if anyone who's played footy and you play the team that's no good and you know you should beat them, but if you don't take your chances and do it early, they can just dag around all game and just scrap in there, and teams lose games to teams that they shouldn't because they don't capitalise. Where you could break a team open early and it'll be just business as usual, will take care of itself. If you give sometimes the teams that aren't travelling that bad, if you give them an in, they'll find a way to hang in there and make it a fight, and that's where it can get ugly. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen.
It also seems to me, watching them, that maybe little things like guys that have been there for 10 years or longer, like Mitchell and Lewis, they'd be part of the fabric of a club. It just doesn't seem like a united team on the ground now.
Yeah.
We always talk about the culture of clubs, but that's only as good as the players that are there. And when a couple of key members of that get shopped off to other clubs, who knows what effect that has, because it doesn't seem the same watching them.
No, so I'm hoping that.
But having said that, screw them and feed them fish heads, and let's hope they get back.
Losing Sam Mitchell, I reckon, people shouldn't underestimate. I mean, that guy can seriously play. I mean, he was a really, really good player. Us Geelong supporters love giving him crap, and we love sort of calling him a little sniper and
but he
every other name. But he regularly tore us apart. Once Ling sort of left, we never had anyone who was able to do anything to him, and he would routinely get 30, 35 touches a day, and he was lethal with every disposal. I'm not sad to see the back of him, but
lethal.
Him and Lewis both going, I reckon, certainly has punched a bit of a hole in that side.
He was lethal with every one of those 10-metre passes that he used to get, that they used to pay as 15 metres.
I'd actually, I would disagree slightly too, because I can remember games when Thompson was in charge where he actually shifted Ling onto Hodge at half-time. Mitchell still got his 30-odd touches, but Thompson obviously made the call, but Hodge hurts us more, and we need to stop him, and we won those games. So, There was a time when Mitchell racked up a lot of possessions, sort of going back to help out, and I think there was an element of allowing him to get those possessions in the back half because he wasn't quite as dangerous. But then once
his last 4 years,
was just his ability to sort of almost because Hodge used to quarterback, and then Mitchell almost became it, and he would sort of sit sort of defensive side, and then he was the one that was pushing forward, and he always hit targets. He was such a good ball user. I mean, his both sides of the body, second none. He's a good player. I mean, I know we don't like saying that about Hawthorn players, but he could play.
No, he's a gun. Let's be honest, he was a gun. I reckon his last 4 seasons in particular, he has sliced us to pieces.
Yeah.
maybe not so much earlier days, I think he used to rack it up a lot of cheap touches and not hurt you as much. But in particular, when Hawthorn were at their peak, he was like a surgeon when he got the ball. He had so much time, and he'd just pick off the best target, and he would literally slice us to pieces. So it's helpful that he's no longer there. So yeah, that's what we've got to look forward to is a very new look Hawthorn this week. We were going to answer a question off Twitter, but we're pushing it for time, so we might drop that off. So I'll finish with a tip, if I could, gentlemen, just to put you on the spot. Partridge.
Geelong, and I'm going to go Duncan for best on ground. There you go.
Yep. Piv?
Yeah, I'll obviously go for Geelong. They've always been pretty close games, these two sides, and I reckon they always get up for each other. I would love it to be a blowout, but I reckon it's probably maybe 5 or 6 our way. I think Dangerfield, I think he'll probably be best on.
I'm a bit the same. I think when I did a preview for the Fremantle game at the start of the year, and I said I hope that it's comfortable enough that I can relax when I watch the game and just enjoy us winning. So about a 5-goal win would be nice. I don't know if it'll happen, but ideally we jump them early and then just we cruise along and there's no stress. That'd be nice for a change on Easter Monday.
Yes.
Player, I reckon that Menz is going to continue his good form and enjoy the game of Easter Monday, and he'll kick 5 or 6. That's my tip. Although it will be tough because I reckon he'll get Stratton probably.
Yeah,
I'd say, who is a bit of a prick and a bit of a dour defender. Will probably stay pretty disciplined in a sense to his role, and will make it tough. But I think Menz will be a good one. Have a good one. That's all.
Yep, good job.
That's about all we have time for. Thank you for joining us again, Partridge.
Pleasure.
And Pivo.
No problem at all, mate.
We will hopefully be enjoying a good game on Monday, and hope that everybody stays safe over the long weekend on the roads, especially, so that you can all be listening to us next time.
Do what I plan to do and be lazy and not leave the house.
There you go. Play it safe. Stay at home.
Eat all that chocolate.
Eat all the chocolate. That's right. Thank you again, guys. And until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.